I'm gonna do hands for the next two. The first was like, well, just depends on okay.
I know the bouncer the first.
Wow.
That's crazy, Kev.
Okay, that's so crazy. That's so crazy.
So it's hit or miss. So we'll find out, but worst comes to worst.
Yo, that's so cool. Yeah.
He knows you don't know how to use big bar.
I know, but you're so famous.
You guys.
You don't even know the names. You don't even make them.
Did you watch these?
No, it's far on lots of lights.
Did you guys?
You should. It's so entertaining.
I would have thought that was
So entertaining.
Yeah.
There's so many.
Mr. Christian's getting the Reeves today.
Yeah, it's
He was the whole one. Again, never asked.
I hope he's very nice.
This is like.
All right, everyone. Hope everyone had a good spring break. Welcome back. Enjoyed watching the Penn State basketball over the weekend, so I'm excited about that. So into this week, hopefully we get a win on Thursday. But yeah, this little slide here. My name is Spallone, President of Campus Social Service. I think all of you know me though. Thanks for the seniors for coming in here today. Appreciate it. Get started with some past weather. On this day, 1993 Superstorm, 30th anniversary. So right around now, 30 years ago, the storm was just cranking up here in State College. The snow total around 28 inches here at the Walker Building. So I think this is one of those storms that if this happened today, this would pretty much break social media. And I know we would go crazy here at Walker Building if this 28 inches of snow fell. So it's one of only two storms to rank as a NESIS Cat 5. Does anyone know what the other storm is? Yeah.
Was it the 96 one?
Yeah, the Blizzard of 96. The 93 Superstorm is like way above the 96 Blizzard though. So it's ranks easily the highest on the NESIS scale. You can see the wide swath of snowfall all the way up, pretty much Gulf Coast, all the way up to Maine. I mean, all of PA pretty much got over 10 inches. So pretty incredible system. Satellite imagery, very scary. It's one of those systems like when I was growing up and learning about the weather, I'd see this system mentioned and I look at that satellite imagery and it just looked like crazy to me. I wanted to show briefly, this is a website that has error 5 analysis. If anyone is on Twitter, you probably know this guy, Tomerberg. So he has this nice archive of some events that you can go through with error 5 analysis, and one of them is the 93 Superstorm. So you can just look at the system form here over the Gulf Coast. So it's classic Miller-A system. And then we have this, this is just ridiculous. Like I couldn't imagine having that image right there with us here at State College. We're in the center of that. So maybe one day we'll see that again, but it's really a storm for the ages. We can also, look at the upper levels a little bit. 500 millibar vorticity, and pretty much phases like 3 vortmaxes here. One over here with upper Midwest or Colorado, and then this one very far south, coming out of Southern Stream. And they phased right over the Gulf Coast. There was a strong derecho from this over Florida. So while this is partially remembered as a snow event, at least by us, it really had all like meteorological impacts from all the way down to Florida here. And then this just wrapped up pretty much and bombed out as a movement. I think it got into the 950s at one point. I think the snow total maxes were somewhere over the Appalachians in here, around 50 inches or so. So
961, I think was
961. Yeah, so very deep. I think this is around where it bottomed out. It's precipitation. It's hiding, okay, yeah, there you go, around 961 or 2 there. So, yeah, I mean, it's just ridiculous precipitation shield, so, yeah, 30th anniversary, and it's one of those, I can see everyone posting on Twitter about it, it's just one of those systems that you'll hear a lot about, but for good reason. But otherwise, we have another storm today, not exactly 93 superstorm type, but a decent system moving through. Right now we're in 33 degrees, Walker Building, and had some snow, rain, kind of sizzle going on outside as I walked in this morning. I don't know if it's quieted down a little bit right now, but there's a lot of stratiform clouds up there. So sitting on the freezing mark, and we're kind of going to be the dry end of the system moving in. But the important thing is that large cold air mass is moving in over the continent of the United States. There's a lot of, I think, some freeze warnings down south. Some pretty cool, seasonally cool temperatures across those areas. See readings in the 40s all the way down close to the Gulf Coast here, 30s in Tennessee, and getting down below zeros across the upper Midwest. This is just the real time RTMA. It's shaded contours, pretty much the same thing that's done before 2 hours ago now. So you can see those below freezing temperatures outlined by the blue there, creeping south. And while we'll be on the cold side of the system, I mean, while we're not going to be seeing precipitation for this system, we're definitely going to notice the wintry type feel regardless. And you can see some of that precip here that's moving through. The system's already getting organized off the coast, and associated over here over the Midwest is the broader upper level low associated with the storm right now. So on the mesoscale analysis page, you can see large 500 millibar trough digging in here. A little bit of a ridge out west. This isn't exactly like the strongest ridge that you maybe want to see for an East Coast snowstorm, and it's kind of crashing in a little bit quickly, but it's getting the job done. It's definitely a better setup than there has been like all winter. So that's why we're seeing this system form here. And see this trough digging in. And if we go to the surface pressure, you're going to see a coastal low forming of North Carolina. So pretty classic setup there. This is going to move towards the north. It gets complex what it's going to do up there. Kind of some models show it swinging around, but we'll get into that in a minute. Upper level jet also looks pretty good going out south, and I think there's another small jet streak maybe up the screen a little bit here. Probably show that on some of the models. Current satellite imagery. You can see this large upper level low here. A lot of stratiform cloud that's moving in here. Plenty of forcing for ascent downstream of this vortex here, and so it's giving us a lot of these clouds and light precipitation now, and that started during the day yesterday. So expect that to continue throughout the day today, and you can see the coastal low starting to form off of the Outer Banks here. So starting to see some of the clouds in the form of that, and this is going to move up towards the northeast off of New England. You can maybe get a better look at the overall setup on the upper level water vapor. Better see the 500 millibar trough here, and then the higher moisture associated with the coastal low forming. Analysis. So again, you can see some of the freeze and cold advisories down south here, current warnings. There's also winter weather advisories out over the Little Highlands and further south over the Alleghenies. So expecting some winter weather over there, mainly northwesterly flow and upslope snow in those areas. And then the main system, as you can see, is mainly going to affect northeastern PA, and then as you get further off into New England and upstate New York, and mainly an elevation dependent system, as we typically see during March. So further up you go, Mount Pocono and the Catskills, and then up to the Berkshires and further up into New England. Those are going to be the best areas, and you can see that kind of clearly if you zoom in on some of these warnings. You can see there's still watches up as you move to the CT River Valley in those areas, but some of these elevation areas in northeastern Connecticut, northwestern Connecticut, and then all of the capital region here, firmly entrenched in those winter storm warnings. So, I mean, we'll get into the totals, but the models are all over the place, even still at this point, and it's kind of very difficult prediction. I have some family just south of Poughkeepsie here texting me, asking for snow totals, and it's hard to kind of give like a specific number because they said, oh, I've seen 8 to 16 inches, I've seen 3 to 6 inches. So forecasts are really all over the place. NWS has one idea. I've seen a lot of TV stations with widely different views on how the system's been evolved. We can just get into the models. We can see, I'll already zoom out on this a little bit. Starting at the top of the atmosphere here. Dr. Graybush would always say the top-down approach, so we'll go from 250 and work towards the bottom here. Don't want to glance at that surface output yet, because it's been kind of a mess, especially on the GFS. But we see this jet streak over the south, and we see the trough dig in here over the Midwest that we saw in the water vapor before. And then we can see our surface low start to form off the coastline. And so it's entrenched in the left exit region of this jet streak. And then we see a little bit, not too much of like a coupled jet structure, but if this was gonna bomb out more, you probably have a stronger jet up here. Sit this in the right entrance region, but there's a little bit of it enhanced winds up there. So the storm will still bomb out probably to the low 980s, 970s. It looked a little bit deeper a few days ago, but the miles have backed off a little bit on the strength. You can see 979 there for the surface pressure. And it's generally probably going to sit just off Cape Cod somewhere and do a little bit of a loop. But you see that ridge out west once again. Again, not that steep of a ridge, but gets the job done. I'd like to see the trough digging a little bit further. Those are the storms I like. Had this ridge bumped up, trough down a little bit further, but I'll take what we can get because we mainly had a trough out west all winter. But we've been at the 500. I mean, there's still a lot of troughiness in the Pacific out here, and the ridge is very transient. You can see there's really not much of a positive anomaly out there. So we're kind of crashing the ridge down really quickly here. But there is plenty of blocking in the North Atlantic, so that's kind of what is keeping us going, and is a bit of a decaying negative NAO. So we had ridging up over here. It's dropping back a little bit, but the flow is still slowed down. Across this area, you see a little bit of a 50-50 flow here, clogging up the pattern. So we'll continue to see the trough dig in, and then go to the vorticity. See a little bit better. I'll zoom in a little bit more. Oh, that's a little too zoomed in. So we see the large vortex here, and then we can see actually the vortex associated with the coastal low. And this is where some of the discrepancy is with the modeling right now. There's been somewhat of like an inverted trough showing up on the models, and it's been taking longer for the system to consolidate. So it hasn't been shown kind of like a classic coastal snowstorm precipitation shield. It's been a little bit more disjointed. And I'll see that when we get to the surface, but essentially the reason for that is there's two different forcing for ascent here, two areas. One right downstream of this large upper low, and the other downstream of all this vorticity up the coast. So essentially they're kind of connecting and forming a inverted trough line structure of lift in this area. That's going to cause kind of a fire hose of moisture and higher snowfall rates in this area. So, but the difficulty is determining where that precisely sets up. A couple days ago, it looked like maybe this would all just consolidate in this vorticity out the coast would move in a little bit more. But now it's looking like it is going to be separate. So the NAM was like bombing out 30 inches everywhere. I think it still may be, but it's difficult for the NAM. So as this moves forward, though, we can see that the two areas of vorticity still are disjointed, but they're starting to get closer together. And eventually, as we get into sometime during the day tomorrow, they should meet up, and that's going to allow them to phase. And now we see this more classic phased upper low sitting off Cape Cod, Long Island. That's more typical of our major northeast winter storms. That's a much better look to me. And if we get onto the surface, we can see. The one thing I don't like on this is it's being pushed out a little bit quickly, which prevents this precip shield from really expanding with this vorticity down to the southwest. Maybe if there's a little more breathing room there, but you can see here that it starts out with more of this line type structure with one area forcing up here and then the other one down here with the coastal low. And then as you move forward, you start to see it phase more, and then you're left with more of a classic low pressure system. It deepens a lot more as a result of that phasing, and then you're left with more of a classic cold conveyor belt snows over New England there. So that is probably the time when snow is most likely throughout much of the Northeast. And if we go to some of the higher resolution models, we can see how they depict it. And right now you can see a lot of that light snow that's over PA, and that'll continue kind of sitting around, probably accumulate a bit in the higher elevations. But as you move forward here, we see the rainfall increase, and mainly rain. I'm looking at where I'm from in Connecticut. My eyes are always trained there, but we're snowing further north where there's more elevation, temperatures are colder. And then as you move forward, the temperatures will crash and the 32 line should move south. And it's difficult here because you can still see this kind of inverted trough moving through. Where exactly that sets up heavier rates that help to cool the column more. I think the 850 millibar temperatures are below freezing throughout most of the area. So that should, if we have heavy enough rates, bring that down to the surface in areas that you get that. But again, it depends where exactly that sets up. Again, I think the better time for widespread snow accumulation comes later in the afternoon tomorrow, where the system consolidates off the coast and we finally switch the wind direction around towards the north more. And so we have a colder wind that moves in, and then we can see here, snow really crashes it all the way down to the coast. And I think this is when most people should get into it. Again, this is during the day more, so you can talk about March sun angle, whatever you want. But I mean, if we're cranking here with the strong low off the coast, I think there should be some decent accumulation to most of these areas. Again, how much accumulation? Difficult to say still, but could be several inches, especially in the higher elevations. Especially, I think, one area I would pinpoint is maybe over in the Worcester area, Worcester Hills. My sister went to school there. They always get slammed with the extra locally high elevation, especially as it's low as up the coast, so I think it could be a local hotspot. But otherwise, I think the max totals will probably come up to the Poconos, Catskills, and the Berkshires there. So look at those areas. And those were the classic areas from the beginning. There's been a lot of back and forth with the models, some highlighting areas further south, but those are the best chance at the beginning. It looks like now that's where we'll probably see the most snow, as is typical this time of year. And then this is just going to sit around. You're going to have a lot of blocking, slow flow, block flow in the area. So this will kind of set the coast. There's going to be a lot of strong winds into the coastline. If you look at the 10-meter winds, I think there's high wind warnings out potentially, or I imagine there is across these coastal areas here. So maybe some coastal flooding and very rough surf in those areas. I think Provincetown, I saw some modeled wind gusts up near hurricane force. So definitely something to watch there. But region-wide, it's also very windy. And right, Wyoming State College here, it's going to be very breezy starting the day tomorrow and then moving into the day on Wednesday. Really, it's going to be kind of sticking around with us into early Thursday. So I'm expecting those strong winds. As you can see there with those strong low off the coast. And yeah, so we bring this photo a little bit more camp because it's loaded. Go back one wrong. You can see it sticks around to Wednesday. And then if we just go to the GFS, you can see it finally clears out by Thursday in terms of the winds. And the snow should probably move out by then as well. It should generally be drying out by that point with a weak high moving in over there in Virginia. So we look clearer by that point. And then I think after this system moves out, we have a brief dry stretch on Thursday. It is going to be colder behind the system. It's going to be a nasty day here on tomorrow, because we're sitting on the cold side of the system. These temperatures tomorrow morning, lows in the 20s, and the highs barely creep above freezing tomorrow. So, and it's going to be windy, so it's not going to be nice tomorrow. And then as you move into Wednesday, another cold morning on Wednesday, a little bit warmer, so it's starting to moderate a bit, and that's going to be the trend. Again, we got a little bit of a weather roller coaster this week, so bad start, but as you move towards the end of the week, we should see, again, a little bit of a cool morning on Thursday, but heading up towards the 50-degree mark on Thursday, and then even higher for Friday, close to 60 in some areas, especially probably southeast and southwest PA. I can see maybe a couple 60-degree readings in those areas. But on Friday, another system's entering. We'll see how much sun we end up getting. Probably be a lot of clouds around with the system approaching. But this should sweep through sometime on Friday night into Saturday here. This looked a little bit more robust some other days yesterday, but it's starting to kind of fade out in the GFS a little bit. I think the lows starting to occlude a little bit quicker. But so we'll see how long that precipitation sticks around there. How much there will be from that, but that's generally next chance for precip here, besides just the light snizzle that's sticking around at the beginning of this week. And then after that system, looking more long range, it generally looks cool for the remainder of March here. And if you go to ensemble, zoom out a little bit, you can see that current system move through, and then I'm way too far. Yeah, that's the current system, and then that's the next system for Friday moving through that trough, and then we continue to see troughiness generally throughout the United States here. Not exactly maybe the best snowstorm pattern, not a great ridge out west, like like we've seen most of the winter. There's some high pressure centered up in the Arctic there. So that's lodging that cold air southward, but it's not the most favorable storm track for us. But there may, on the models long range, if you go to a deterministic model, it doesn't look terrible. And there seems like the next chance for a storm would be the middle of next week there. And I mean, that looks like a good coastal storm. So we'll see what sets up and keep an eye on that. But generally, it looks like a cool later half of March. That's what it looks locked in right now. And I don't have the CPC outlook pulled up, but I think pretty much all the outlooks have below normal temperatures. It's the that's the 14 day, 6 to 10 day, and I even think the 3 to 4 week, wherever it is.
It does.
I know it does, yeah. Similar theme, pretty much nationwide. Cool anomalies. Cool anomalies nationwide occurring. So, unfortunately, no spring warmth this way, but maybe some transient hits of warmer air. As I mean, we have a little bit more coming this Friday, so we'll see if we can get a couple of nice days in there. But overall, it looks below average, or a little bit slightly below average, which is better than we saw for February. I think if within the 2 meter temp anomalies. There's a large stretch of below average coming after this system on Friday. It generally gets out of here, and that's in line with that outlook that you showed before. So just wanted to show the NBM real quick, kind of gives a good sense of that. See that little, I cannot reach up there, I'm not even gonna try. We see the temperatures dip down here first half of this week and then brief warm up and then generally back down again. We'll see what happens probably as this next system approaches, so more uncertainty with that. But generally, I did want to show real quick beforehand some research I've been working on with Dr. Neese. I actually was able to get some results as I finished, meteorological winter finished up. So I figured I'd just present this real quick. And then I'll do a little bit of forecast recap after. But these two maps, this is the observed snowfall from, I thought this was, I don't know how to pronounce that, NOHRIC. I thought that's how we always pronounced it. I was at the NWS over spring break, and they apparently pronounce it no risk. So I don't know if anyone else knew that, but something new I learned. So that's from no risk, and that's the total snowfall this winter from December 1st to March 1st, and across those areas. And the bottom right, that's the GFS. That's the GFS 5-day forecast, pretty much summed up every 5-day forecast over the entire winter. So if you believe the 5-day forecast, every single time you looked at it, that's how much snow you would have gotten. So you can compare those two maps and kind of look at them. And you can kind of just look at this one, and that does it for you. This is the 5-day forecast minus the observed snowfall. So this is just the difference between those two. So you can see where the errors are. Generally, the GFS under forecasted snow throughout that strike, large over forecasted across a lot of areas. Seems like an under forecast lake effect, which makes sense because it's a pretty low resolution model. I haven't really delved into the details too much yet, but I have this data for every day of the GFS. So I have the 16-day forecast, 1-day forecast, 10-day forecast. So I'm interested to see the difference. I'm expecting more error as you go out in time, of course, but I don't know. Interesting to kind of take a look at it. There may be some surprises in there, but of course, there hasn't been that much snow this winter, so not a ton of data to really sample, but maybe I'll probably extend this further into March because we've got more snowfall events moving through. So that data will probably help. But yeah, just a quick forecast recap. Average high this time of year, 45, 28 as the average low. Record high, 76 all the way back in 2006. And not all the way back, that's not that far. All all the way back in 1896, the record low was 7. And again, we're on the weather roller coaster. So as you can see there, we're heading up to the top this week. Maybe we're going back down after that. So light rain and snow showers today. I'll be around 41 for a high. Get just gusty and cold in the middle of the week. But the sky's finally clear by Wednesday, and then we start that moderating trend, moving up into the 50s by Thursday, and then warm on Friday. And I expect that frontal passage late on Friday, and then some rainfall into early Saturday. But yeah, generally exciting day today. So we'll see what happens with this system off the coastline. I don't know if anyone else has any other thoughts on that. It's about all I have. As I can show the snowfall map from the NWS, see what they're predicting. You can see the PA map, I guess. So mostly over Scranton, besides some of the upslope. But could be a foot plus, some higher elevations, especially over the Poconos. So even at 8 to 12 in Scranton. So, and then obviously the wind as well. You can see here. It's a little small. So 40-mile-per-hour wind gusts possible here, and then maybe up to the 50s over the Laurel. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. So I thought this week. Does anyone have any questions or other thoughts?
Could you just show the GEFS the ensemble vorticity?
Mm-hmm. For this one?
I just think it averages out the noise.
Yeah, it definitely
It
does.
lets you see the two distinct.
Definitely. Yeah, you can see them pretty clearly there. It separates it pretty nicely. You got a little break in between that. All right. Well, if no one else has anything, thanks for coming out, guys.
I suspect that stripe of under forecast
Mhm. Yep.
might be related to one storm.
Yeah, I think it is because it
You
just
know,
hasn't been
it's like,
enough.
if that's a
snow.
5-day, it just missed
Mhm.
one storm,
Yep.
maybe 2. I mean, that's not an uncommon storm track this winter.
Yep.
The New England thing is neat.
Yeah.
So it has under forecast at 5 days, snow in Maine. I have to talk to, we have 2 alumni in the Caribou office, the weather service. Wonder if they have noticed that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think the over forecast is pretty clear, like across the coast, and that makes sense because it's hard to under forecast basically nothing. So,
That's a good point.
yeah.
Thank you for showing me.
Yeah.
And I do think there's going to be value in there that needs to be explored.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll talk before you
Yeah.
leave. Where are you going this summer? You have a plan?
Yeah, I'll be at the end of the US. Just outside the circle. So, I'll be pretty
You know, like the 30 minutes, especially whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
It was one big break.
Oh, yeah.
Good. Fabulous.
Always a good.
Yes.
You having trouble getting up? Yeah, I'll always be in a chair. It's so comfortable.
That's your